Welcome to Cinema on a Shelf, a podcast about movies and physical media. My name is Matt, and thank you for spending some time with me instead of watching a movie. I promise I will try to make it worth your time. Today's going to be something a little bit new for Cinema on a Shelf, in that it's going to be the start of a new little mini-series, sort of one of many that I have going on the podcast so far. And this is going to be my first episode with a guest on the podcast. So the series that I'm going to start doing here is called Collector Conversations. And I thought it would be kind of fun to invite some different people onto the podcast and have a bit of a conversation with them about collecting movies on physical media. Because as I've talked about a lot of different times before, there's really no right and wrong way to collect movies. And everybody gets to kind of decide what they want to do and the things they're sort of interested in and how they want to collect, how much they want to collect, what they want to collect. And I thought it'd maybe be kind of interesting to start have a few conversations with different people about this. So for my first episode of this, I am going to be talking with a fellow podcaster, Dakota Arsenault. We're going to touch on a whole bunch of different subjects related to how Dakota collects movies. And without further ado, we'll get right to that conversation right now. So I guess I can start with saying welcome, Dakota, to the podcast. Thank you for coming on and being my inaugural guest in this little, what I hope is going to be a series.
I always enjoy being a guinea pig, so thank you very much for having me on. It just means that this will be an episode I probably won't listen to. I love listening to your show, but I don't know how much I enjoy listening back to me talking, especially when you have to edit your own podcast, and so you hear your voice enough.
That's fair. Yeah, I completely understand with that one. I don't really scroll around my own episodes too much. So, yeah, I guess we can start off by I'll give you a bit of the floor to maybe do a little bit of a self-introduction and bit about who you are, and then maybe a little bit about how movies are part of your life.
Yeah, sure. I host a podcast called Contra Zoom Pod. It is also a website, contrazoompod.com, where we also post written reviews. So the movie podcast aspect, I've been doing this. I'm just starting my 12th year now, which is insane to me that I've been doing it for this long. Over 300 episodes. I think by the time this comes out, we'll probably be at 334, which also is pretty mind-blowing. Yeah, it's such a tough podcast to describe, to sort of give the elevator pitch to people. I just sort of use the tagline where we go back and forth about film, because the episodes kind of range about everything. We cover film festivals, we cover Oscar season, we look back at movie anniversaries. I do a whole series where I'm going through A24's entire filmography.
Right, yeah.
It's kind of a little bit of everything. It's sort of whatever is, interesting me at the time. Is there something in the news that I can tie in a little bit? I like, if you're just a general movie fan, there's going to be something for you. Maybe not every episode is going to be for you, but there's going to be enough interesting stuff that I think you're going to be intrigued by. And then over on the website side of things, got a terrific team of writers that write about films, that review films. We do a great job with covering film festivals, so we do a lot of that. And recently, we've been trying to get more into reviewing physical media. Previously, Sony has been sending me and one of our other writers, Jeff, some copies of their films, but recently got involved with a company called Allied Vaughn, which is the parent company, I don't know, partner company of MovieZing, where where you actually now are a contributor to the website, reviewing physical copies, and your review has already gone up, Tea and Sympathy, and there'll be a few more coming in the next month and going forward as well.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's been a fun. I used to at one point in my life do a little bit of like album music writing reviews. This is now 20 years ago or so. So it was kind of fun to get back into doing a bit of non-work related writing and some stuff about things I really am enjoying. And you reached out to me being a physical media podcast. I was like, hey, you interested in doing this? And
Mhm.
we're both Canadian too, and living on the same side of the country, so that may have played a little factor too. Who knows?
A little bit.
Yeah, well, that's fair. That's awesome. Oh, that's great. And yeah, Contra Zoom it's a really fun, very diverse podcast as well. That was one of the things that struck me when I first started checking out a lot of your back catalog stuff. That you're right. You can kind of go in and go, oh, this looks really interesting. And if it's like going through the A24 retrospective stuff, it's like, well, I haven't seen that yet, so I don't want to listen to that, but I'll go watch this one. Or like, yeah, it's really good with that, and I think it's fun to have a podcast like that where you're doing something that interests you, because if you're locked into something, and if you're doing nothing but Oscar race stuff, which I know you do as well with the Oscar death race stuff.
Mhm.
Some years you get into the Oscar season and it's like, boy, I don't like many of these at all. So it could be a little tougher for that. So,
Mhm.
but today we're talking a little more about the physical media stuff, as you mentioned. And I think what I kind of want to do with this is have it really be just a kind of a conversation back and forth, talking a bit about being a collector, which I know you are as well, and talk a bit just about what kind of interests you, how you got into it, how you do what you do with it, because this is the fun thing about this little hobby is everybody has their little quirks and niches about it, and it's always fun to hear about. So I guess maybe the first place to start is to ask you about how long you've been collecting physical media for.
So I was trying to think of that, and like back, I'm in my mid to late 30s, so I've been around long enough where I had VHS at home, and
Yeah.
as a kid, it was obviously a lot of Disney and stuff like that, kid
Hmm.
friendly material, and then whatever my mom had at the time,
Yeah.
and then got a DVD player in the early 2000s, and so we sort of got some DVDs, but it wasn't really until I was end of high school, going into college, that I started sort of collecting DVDs.
Hmm.
HMV, which is mostly known as a music chain, was
Yep.
great for their either like 2 for 20 or like 4 for 30
Yeah.
titles like that. So like I would often pick up a lot of titles like that. And then I found myself moving around a lot, and I sort of parsed down my collection,
Hmm.
sort of the bare minimum. And then it was only really in the last, I would say, 6 years or so that I've gotten back into it,
Okay.
specifically getting nice boutique versions of Blu-rays,
Hmm.
4Ks, box sets, things like that that really kind of shape my taste.
Yeah.
um, and then now sort of the emphasis on making sure that like I'm getting good versions. I'm not,
Hmm.
there's nothing, I've no issue with people that are like, I just want to go thrifting and see what I can get. I've got several friends that like that's what they love to do, and I
Yeah.
just don't really have the space. So I am very specific in my curation of what I do buy. So it is very much so like, is this like a very nice edition of something? Is this a brand
Yeah.
new restoration in
Hmm.
4K? Things like that. So I am very specific about what I do buy these days, just because of shelf constraints, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the great dilemma of this
Yeah,
hobby.
yeah. I no longer buy DVDs at all.
Right.
I only own a handful still, and they're mostly ones that sort of have sentimental value to me.
Hmm.
Whether they're specific editions, I have a couple small DVD box sets, things like that.
Yeah.
But it's very minimum. I think it's like less than 20 now I have of DVDs.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've been slowly paring down my own collection with it, just upgrading kind of where I can, and there's certain things that I'm finding that's tougher and tougher to do
Mhm.
in certain ways of just it's either out of print or goes for a whole bunch on secondary markets if that's the case, or even just has never been released. This is the beauty and the pain of the hobby, I guess, of
Mhm.
finding what you like, but also not finding what you want to find as well.
Yeah.
So in talking about that, in sort of curating your collection the way you do, where do you mostly kind of go to find stuff? Are you doing a lot more online shopping? Are you doing some in-person stuff where you can?
It's mostly online shopping, just because I find Canadian retailers, unfortunate side effect is our Canadian dollar isn't as strong as the American one, so things
Hmm.
automatically get priced differently. And then I also find that there's just too much of an upcharge where, like, I love supporting, the local businesses, but when you're charging, even with the conversion rate, $10 more than
Yeah.
what the American what I could buy from directly from the American site, it makes it very difficult sometimes to go that route,
Hmm.
unless it's either a used version or a used copy or something like that. Because even the sales often don't do the same discounts as directly from either the boutique label themselves or
Hmm.
American retailers like the Barnes and Nobles and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, and it used to be not always that way. Like I know at one time when well, we were able to buy stuff from the Barnes and Noble sales, which right now they've been restricting it the last few years.
Mhm.
But there used to be a time where the Canadian dollar was at par with the American dollar, and it was a absolute steal. In fact, even a couple of years, I remember it being slightly stronger,
Yeah.
which was just hey, those were the days. Had I known.
Yeah, those are the days. I grew up in Ontario where, like, you go down shopping to Niagara Falls and
Yeah,
be able to spend so much more money and be like, "Well, let's just hit up all the outlets in Niagara Falls, Buffalo area
yeah. Hmm.
and make it like bandits."
Yeah, yeah, and I mean that's a whole cottage industry,
Yeah.
and not just there, but in a lot of places. I mean, where you are now, it's a big deal to. It's very easy to drive down to Seattle
Mhm.
from where you are, and a lot of people do it, and maybe there's a little bit less traffic these days because of political reasons, but it's that's a I think always a big thing. There's always people trying to figure out. You were telling me a funny story about a friend of yours that does live down south that you sort of had muling Blu-rays for you at
A
one
little bit,
point.
yeah. I'm not gonna name any names because I don't want him getting
Yeah,
flagged at the
we're not narking on anybody.
No, but I am not the only one. I currently have 3 Criterion titles at his house
Yeah.
from the last flash sale that went on.
Yeah, I've kind of long actually seen some of those services that do that, where you can, it's like the mail service to
Yeah.
various border towns throughout parts of the US that then they will like pay a little extra service to mail it from there up to Canada, which I've never actually done the math to know if it's cheaper in some cases. Maybe it would be. I know it would be cheaper for other physical media stuff. I think like records, they charge
Mhm.
a lot to ship over the border, but movies, I think you pick and choose a little bit of where it's coming
Yeah.
from.
Like a site like Criterion, buying directly from them, I don't know if you
Hmm.
find this, but they hit you real hard with the duties, when you're importing them. They seem to be the only
Hmm.
one. I think it's because they use DHL, and I guess
Yeah.
DHL overestimates how much the duties are gonna cost. I don't know what it is, but, like, I try not to import directly from Criterion because of the duties.
Yeah, I find the same thing. I find that at times I haven't gotten hit if it's a smaller order.
Mm.
Having been a channel member, sometimes you get those gift codes in your email, and I've done that some of the time where I just order like one title if I'm really really looking forward to it and using the code. I've had a few of those that haven't done with anything, so I think some of the smaller amount ones. Now that being said, I haven't done that in a little bit, and I know the rules about the de minimis exemptions and things like that have changed with shipping. So
Yeah.
I think the last time I did it, I just took the hit because I quite literally used about 10 of my Criterion channel codes all at once. So one of the flash sales that I was just like, oh, this is gonna be
Yeah.
worth it. It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of that, and you mentioned Criterion, I think this is something that anybody that's listened to me before knows. I love talking about boutique stuff. Um, Outside of Criterion, which it does sounds like you do have some of those in your collection. Is there any other sort of boutique labels that you are really interested in or have been collecting for or really enjoy collecting for?
Um, I'm loving going deeper into Arrow's catalog. That
Mm-hmm.
I think sort of maybe overtaken Criterion as maybe my favorite label. I like
Okay.
Criterion, it's the gold standard. It's one of those things where, you know, they're so good and so popular and they put out so many great titles. They're almost underrated again because
Mm-hmm.
you sort of forget just the impact and influence they have where, like,
Right.
if if I was ever invited to go to the Criterion Closet, I'd be like the Safdie brothers, you know, just absolutely stuffing their tote bags, multiple tote
Yeah.
bags full. So like it's funny where you're like yeah, Criterion is the best, but you know I also really love these other labels, and
Yeah.
it's a weird dichotomy in that regard. Arrow has really sort of become my sort of go-to now, and
Hmm.
the reasoning because is 2 years ago I did a podcast about giallo films for my annual Halloween episode,
Right.
and
Okay.
that's become a huge obsession of mine. So I so I've now in a span of I think 12 months, less than 12 months, I bought all 5 of the Essential Giallo box sets from
Yep.
Arrow.
Hmm.
Absolutely love them all. They're fantastic, and
Nice.
they have a bunch of other like individual releases as well. So now I'm slowly starting to like look at those. I'm like, oh, okay, which ones do I want to kind of grab
Hmm.
there? I recently just for the Arrow sale, their Easter sale, got 2 Argento films.
Okay.
Yeah,
That the I'm thinking of the two is they've got Cat o' Nine Tails and Bird with the Crystal Plumage. Is that
they
the
also
two?
have Deep Red. So I didn't get Bird with the Crystal
Right.
Plumage this
Hmm.
time.
Yeah.
That'll be a pickup next time probably.
Hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Giallo's a genre that I've like barely dipped my toes into, and I know Arrow's one of the labels, so there's several labels that really go like full bore into the giallo stuff. I mean, Italian film is kind of rich in a lot of genres, but yeah, they do a really good job with that. And because horror is one that I like am still a super novice in, that but it always looked anytime you see stills or like you know videos or video essays that they're talking about giallo, like they always look
Mhm.
incredible.
Yeah, yeah, they really do. I believe it's Vinegar Syndrome has their Forgotten Gialli box sets as well,
Yep.
which I'm sort of curious about, but like the price point is a little high, and
Hmm.
the reviews that I've read is the box sets are kind of all over the place in terms of like quality of film, not necessarily the quality of the look, but just the quality of the films themselves. And so like that's still a bit of a tough sell for
Hmm.
me to like go in blind buying some of them.
Yeah, and that does make sense for Vinegar Syndrome's kind of, you know what they do. Their oeuvre of stuff. They will go in. They're just as happy to do a uber low budget, not wonderful quality film, but give it a loving edition just as much as they'll, shell out to do Showgirls or Roadhouse or something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's fun. Arrow's one that I like. I'm late coming to. Like I've been collecting Criterion for a really long time, and Arrow was one. I think for a long time because of the stuff they typically didn't quite interest me as much. And in the last 5 years, certainly, they seem to have done a lot more that is like hitting me right in the spot of like, oh, this is really interesting. And then discovering the Arrow Academy stuff. And even though now that's not really a thing anymore, that's like, okay, yeah, I have some things to kind of dive into. And one thing I've found with any of their stuff is you talked about getting like good remasters and good restorations. Like I've yet to watch something from them that's even like mildly not great.
Yeah, and their packaging is absolutely top notch. Like
Yeah.
their box sets are so sturdy. They look great. Their artwork is always terrific. Like there's no complaint with the actual packaging and release of any Arrow title.
Yeah, yeah. It's not a super surprise that a lot of their limited stuff that they put out with a box, like the Hong Kong John Woo films or the Dollars trilogy stuff.
Mm.
Like it's no wonder that it gets sold out really really quickly because uh, they have that hallmark for their quality for sure.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. That's
I've also have a bunch of Kino Lorber titles too.
yep.
They I love what they do too because it's a lot of classic films, sort of like the B tier. If Criterion releases the A tier of classic films, Kino Lorber's kind of like that B tier of like, oh, here's Jimmy Stewart's other films, here's
Yeah,
Alfred Hitchcock's other films, things like that, where you can really sort of like fill out your collection of like what's the director or star's next rung down of like all time classic films,
yeah.
which
Or the ones that just have been they get in weird limbo. I feel like, and I've got quite a few Kinos as well, and it's a label I actually really am looking forward to talking about at some point in an episode because they do find that like volume kind of niche of saying like, hey, everybody knows, these Mike Nichols movies, but like we had them for a bit and then they went out of print. So it's like, oh, well, where are they going to go? And Billy Wilder stuff is the same, because I collect a lot of Billy Wilder stuff. They've done some really fun editions that some are still in print, some aren't. And they really get that like volume in there where it's like, hey, if you're really wanting to collect for this actor or this director or this person, you're probably going to find some good additions there. Not necessarily the most stacked, but
Yep.
like still going to look probably as good as you're going to get. So
100%. Yeah. A lot of stuff that you can't find on streaming or anywhere else. And so it's a
mm-hmm.
great way to kind of fill out your collection that way
Yeah, that's fair.
without breaking the bank either.
And that's also really nice too.
Yeah.
I think the boutique space is the prices do go up and up, and a lot of times you're getting good quality out of it, or limited editions, or extra stuff that some people get really into. And sometimes if you just want kind of a nice 4K edition of like High Noon, you're going to find it on Kino for a pretty good price. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's pretty good. I think I know the answer to one of this because we've had this conversation before, and I mentioned a little bit about like collecting for a person or a director. And I know one specifically that you kind of get into with this, but is there a specific like director or actor that you kind of like to collect a lot of or focus on?
Yeah, that's sort of where a lot of my collecting focus does go into play.
Mhm.
I've never been able to answer the question, "Who's your favorite actor?" I don't have one.
Yeah.
But you ask me who my favorite director is. We can spend the next hour just talking about that.
Yeah.
And so that's where a lot of my sort of collecting sort of boils down to. Alfred Hitchcock was the first one. I own almost all of his films that are in print,
Yeah.
released on either Blu-ray or 4K, things like that.
Hmm.
So a lot of people kind of forget like just how big his filmography is.
Oh
Uh,
God,
it
it's huge.
yeah, it actually I think is about 50 or so films, and so I think I'm in the 30s of what I own. There's a
That's
whole
pretty good.
bunch. Yeah, that also includes like some of his silent films, a lot of his early British films,
Hmm.
a lot of stuff that, frankly speaking, is not very good. Kino Lorber
Yeah.
has put out a lot of them.
Yeah.
So I think I own all of them from Kino except for Jamaica Inn. That's the last one, and like every time I
Hmm.
go to check it out, when it's on sale, it's still not cheap enough for what is
Yeah.
a pretty bare bones release. I'm like, I'm not spending 30 US on Jamaica Inn.
Yeah, that's fair.
Sorry, Hitchcock. So he's like sort of the big one, and then since then, I've kind of moved on to a couple other directors that are really big and important to me. David Cronenberg
Hmm.
is a big one. I mentioned I've got 3 Criterion titles waiting to be picked up. All 3 of them were Cronenberg titles. I got
Yeah.
Scanners, um, The Brood, and The Shrouds.
Yeah.
I picked up last time. So I own. I'm getting there. I think I'm probably about 25% with these new ones. I'll probably be about 40% of his titles. And then it's sort of playing the waiting game of waiting for some of his lesser titles to get upgrades. Some of them only ever came out on DVD, or frankly speaking, I try not to buy Blu-rays that came out when Blu-rays first came out.
Yeah.
Basically were just DVDs put onto Blu-rays. They weren't
Hmm.
really remastered or upscaled or anything like that, or restored. And so I'm sort of waiting for some of these titles that, yeah, it came out on Blu-ray in 2013, 2012, but it kind of just looks like a DVD.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't kind of fully remastered to what you want it to be for some of that. So,
100%.
and I did the same thing with a little bit of Cronenberg because I do really love a lot, even most of his films that I've seen, even the real left turns for stuff like M Butterfly and whatnot. But the one that I like held out the longest for and upgrading was Dead Ringers because
Mm,
it's one of my favorite of his, and it for a really long time just was like, no, I had the old Criterion, and I'm like, this is gonna do. And then Shout Factory or Scream Factory had it. I'm not sure which line of theirs did it, and God, it looks great. And actually, I discovered too that my old film professor from the University of Alberta does commentary on it. And after I watched that, I was like, I did an essay about David Cronenberg for this man, and I'm now realizing that he's guesting on
Mhm.
the Blu-ray. That he
Yeah.
must have loved my essay as a 20-year-old.
Oh, Matt's got it all wrong. Huh, this is
I
not what
know.
Cronenberg was intending with this phallic object.
Yeah, I'm sure I wasn't the only one. That's for sure. You talked a little bit about shelf space and about sort of that being a thing that you're conscious of with collecting. What does your sort of shelf space look like? Like, what do you use for shelves? Do you, uh, do you sort of have taken up more room than you want to take up and are trying to pare down, or what do you kind of have for that?
I think it was about a year ago. I upgraded my shelf because the one that I had ran out of space.
Hmm.
And so I got some shelves from IKEA. I wish I can remember what the name of it is. They're not the Billy ones, but they kind of look like that, but nicer.
Okay.
And it came with a bracket, so I've got three of them. And it sits in a corner, so they've got brackets on the two outer ones to kind of like hold it in place, so that way it
Oh,
like kind
okay.
of creates a semicircle of
Yep.
shelves in the corner. Still works really nice. The top shelf of it is a glass shelf, so I've got like some knickknacks, some Funkos, and things like that.
Yep.
And then on the top, I bought some LED battery operated pot lights. Uh,
Oh, okay.
so I put that in each one of them, so that way it can kind of glow a little bit. It'll match the color. I do have LED strip lights in my living room and behind my TV. So like oftentimes when we're watching movies, turn all the lights off, but then I'll sort of set the color tone of what the movie looks like. So that way
Yeah.
if we need to get up or we're reading something,
Yeah.
that you can still see a little bit.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. I
Yeah,
used to have one of those on my last TV. Actually, came in pretty handy for doing that.
yeah,
Organizing collections. It's just a whole episode about this.
you did.
This is such a funny, wild. Even as I was researching it, I'm just like, there are some people out there that go on Reddit and talk about the way they organize things, and I immediately defaulted in my head to him like, this is John Cusack in High Fidelity doing the like, yeah, sure, okay.
Yeah.
This is not normal. How do you approach organizing your collection?
I'll say when I was listening to your episode on that, I was like, oh yeah, I've tried almost most of these methods in one way or another.
Yeah,
Uh, the bigger your collection gets, it ironically gets both easier and harder at the same time because
yeah,
the more titles you have, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I can break it down by label or by format or things like that. Whereas if you have, if you only have 30 or 40 titles, it looks weird when you start breaking it up and you're like, you can't find anything. So
yeah,
it's just easier to keep it alphabetical. But then on the flip side, uh, the larger and larger you get, you kind of just want to scrap all that and be like, okay, I just need to keep this alphabetical.
yeah.
So saying all that, it is a little of a bit of a complicated system. I do have, I sort by label for Criterion, Arrow, and Kino,
Okay.
where Criterion, it's by spine number.
Yep.
And then the other two, it's just alphabetical, sort of box sets or the chunkier formats come first, and then everything else kind of comes afterwards. And then whatever is left in my collection, I sort of buy 4K, Blu-ray, DVD, alphabetical.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's sort of the system I've landed on. I think I call it a few more of my boutique ones than I used to. And I don't even do it with all of them. I know my Warner Archive stuff is still just in amongst everything else, and
Yeah.
there's a part of my brain that's like, but I'm doing it for these and not for these. This is the problem that this sickness of a hobby
Yeah. I'm
will
moving,
do to you. So
I'm moving soon, and so that also comes with an opportunity of reorganization if I feel up to.
it does, and also comes with the hassle of moving with a collection, which I've done many times in my life, and is well, and you can also see behind me, I also have a record collection, which nobody wants to help you move. So,
That's more what I'm concerned about moving. I also am a record collector, and I
hmm,
probably have about the same amount of titles, both in movies and in records,
yeah.
about 250 or so. But the 250 records weigh a hell of a lot more than 250 movies.
Yeah, I've honestly taken to the point where anytime I'm moving, I know that the records are on me because
Yeah,
I'm like, I really can't, I have literally another one of those size of shelves just on the other side. So
that's
I've been collecting for a lot of years. So I know that it's like, this is my problem. I will pack it up. I will deal with it. I will lift it. I will. And then if we do get help from anyone else, then I'm not asking them to do that, which
Yeah.
is part of the joke because everybody knows how much I love all of the physical stuff that I've got. So, it's funny actually, when we were getting prepared for this, I had this question and you sort of prompted being like, oh yeah, I'm doing this thing. I'm like, this is exactly kind of what I'm going to ask about. Any sort of interesting quirks
Mhm.
that sort of go with your collection. And you mentioned that you're kind of on a mission of like a great, not a case reorganization, but a case swap, I
Yeah.
guess.
I am
Tell me about that.
purging the blue Blu-ray cases. I hate those cases. I think they look so ugly. If I want to get really nerdy, I really like, I think it's like Mondo Macabra does the red cases, and then like I've seen like some Italian releases do the
Oh,
yellow cases,
okay.
things like that. If I was like really nuts, I would do those, but like they are so difficult to find and so expensive to like
Hmm.
just straight up buy the empty cases. I'm not doing that. No, no.
Yeah.
I really like the clear cases. Thank you, Criterion. You do it the best. The Criterion cases are the most beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a few other labels that use them. I think Flickr Alley does as well. And indicators are a little different. They're the one with the like the extra clear space on
Yep.
top, like the blue ones, which I think also look pretty nice too. But
Mhm.
that I might pick your brain about that at one point because I don't know that I have a I don't despise the blue cases. I also have because I collect all these physical media things. I do also have a little video game collection, and like for something like a PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 game where it's Sony in the blue cases,
Mhm.
it kind of makes sense for them because they do put a little bit of branding on their spines to sort of make it, and it's their colors.
Yeah.
Xbox used to do green cases with stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I might pick your brain about sourcing that if that part of my collector brain ever gets tickled and I want to change those up.
Yeah, there's a website that I buy them from. I have it bookmarked somewhere. I can't remember what it's called. It's like Good Woody Shop or something like that. I can't remember, but they basically
Okay.
sell that you either mostly bulk, but like media related things. So you can buy blank discs, you can buy cases, you can buy storage, things like that. I think it's meant for retailers, but they do
Yeah, yeah.
offer things on individual levels. Some of it does come where it's like minimum buys. So recently, I just got clear cases for movies that have two discs, but it was
Okay.
minimum buy of six.
Okay.
And so it worked out where I think I had five, and so I have one left over now, but that's fine. I'll just hold on to it until the next time I get a movie with two discs, and I'll just swap it out right away.
Hmm.
And then I had to replace. I had got the Godzilla, King Kong, the newest MonsterVerse, the legendary MonsterVerse box set, where it's five
Okay.
films from Groove, and the case arrived damaged.
Okay.
And they wouldn't replace it for me, despite going back and forth and very not happy with Groove's customer service over this. So I ended up buying
Fair.
a 5 case. Even though it was 4K, they didn't have the black version, so I just got the clear. I was like, whatever, it has a slip cover anyways. I don't care. I just want to make sure it's in a secure case where the discs are no longer loose inside.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I guess there's not too many of those sets that have the little flippy case and thing of like the Blade Runner, one with like 5 discs in it.
Yeah.
That might be a little harder, but if they've got something like that, that at least is helpful.
Yeah, so the five disc one was a little bit more expensive. It was $16 for the single unit,
Hmm.
but like if it was just the color of the case, I probably wouldn't do it. But the fact that the case was damaged itself
Yeah.
necessitated me having to swap it out because I didn't want floating plastic in there and the discs jumping around and things being scratched up and things like that. So it was worth it for the sake of it, uh,
Totally.
of switching that. So it was crazy.
Yeah.
So I got it for Christmas and it was just sitting on my shelf because like I could hear the plastic rattling inside and the discs rattling inside. So I left it there and was going back and forth with them and it was a whole ordeal. And eventually they were just like, no, sorry, we can't do anything about this for you. And I'm like, all right, fine. I'll just buy a
That's
case.
I guess that's also the beauty of buying stuff online too, is sometimes it is what it is when you
Yeah.
get them in the mail. So yeah. um, in terms of and that's like you said, a little quirk, but almost like a little goal of like, hey, I'm doing this and upgrading things. I before I ask maybe the general question, being both Canadian, and I know that both of us kind of seems like we both have a real kind of not necessarily a soft spot probably, but maybe an interest in movies from our country, because it's a very interesting topic that is still probably completely underrepresented for a country as big and as old as Canada. We've
Mhm.
relied on Hollywood movies for a long time. And I know with when I did my episode about Canadian international pictures, you talked about you wanted to pick up one of their releases. And Canadian movies are really hard to find in physical media a lot of the time. And I know I kind of I will go in and out of like what I want in the collection and what I kind of find with it. Is there, do you do much collecting of Canadian movies outside of Cronenberg stuff?
Unfortunately, no, and it's mostly just due to availability. It's
Hmm.
really tough. Still, I find new Canadian movies will often only get like a DVD release too,
Yeah,
where I don't buy DVDs, so I'm not going to buy that. Where it's a bit of a shame. Sometimes you'll get a Blu-ray, but like very bare bones packaging, kind of ugly artwork on the outside, filled with like quotes. And the fact that we live in a bilingual country means everything is in both French and English, so it just like it looks
yeah,
so busy and crowded, and so it's really tough. And there's CIP, and no one really else is doing any sort of boutique style releasing, and it's a real shame. Like over on Contra Zoom, a big part of my ethos is supporting Canadian cinema. I
yeah,
do several episodes about the Canadian Screen Awards. We recently did an episode talking about the nominees for this year. We'll do one once the award show actually happens.
yeah,
I try to dedicate at least one or two other episodes per year talking about Canadian films. Whenever I'm at a film festival, I make sure that I am also covering Canadian films,
yeah,
encouraging my writers to do it too. Even though not all my writers are Canadian, some are American, I will still encourage them to watch Canadian films and to write about them, because that's something that like I feel a duty to
yeah.
do. And it's frustrating that there isn't enough of us out there that give a damn.
Mhm.
And the Canadian Screen Awards, every once in a while, I'll just like look on Spotify, be like, is anyone else even podcasting about the Canadian Screen Awards? And type that into Spotify, and the only result that will come up is my show, and I think there's like one other podcast did an episode once about it, and that is
Yeah,
it. No one else is covering them. And it's like how are we not covering our version of the Oscars, people? Like, what's going on here?
yeah, yeah. This is very, having taken a Canadian English film class at one point in university, like this is the uphill struggle, and it really hasn't changed. Like it's always sort of swimming upstream and fighting against where the money is, frankly. And as successful as something like the National Film Board has been in certain sects of film, it doesn't translate over to something like, I think the last new Canadian film that I saw get a decent release, I think, was Red Rooms, because I think Vinegar Syndrome
Yeah.
did a version of Red Rooms. And I'll be really interested this year to see what happens with Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie, being as that it's become as big as it is internationally, not just in Canada. It seems like that's the sort of thing that might be a little more ripe for getting a decent edition, whether they're able to get a boutique label to do it, or whether that's not A24 doesn't have that one, but
No, but there is already a pre-order for a Blu-ray for it out,
mhm,
and it does look nice.
yeah.
It more traditional of what other people would expect, and I think it's because it has been such an international hit.
Yeah, I mean, anytime like you kind of see it unexpectedly in places. Actually, when I was in TIFF last year, which I just went to the opening weekend at TIFF, and only was able to see a couple of movies, and I lined up for the Criterion Closet because,
Mhm.
hi, of course I did. The biggest lineup of that opening weekend that I saw for Rush tickets was not Sentimental Value, was not Knives Out. It was Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie, and I
Mhm.
was like, this is there might be something here. And then it got wide distribution through Canada, through the US, internationally. Like, you tune into a bunch of different kind of bigger podcasts, and like people are really championing it as
Mhm.
a movie, which hasn't happened in a Canadian movie probably since something like, I don't know, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, where it's like a weird Canada international hybrid production. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's sort of a struggle bus with with some of those, and I buy a few more DVDs I think than it sounds like you do, and there's some that I'm just like, yeah, Jesus of Montreal is only really available on DVD, and Aden Arjo it's only really available on DVD, and
Yeah.
Saddest Music in the World, and like, yeah, it's sort of
Is there
a
even a release of Last Night? I don't know.
no. I have the DVD of it, and
Okay.
like that is one that that might be my most like of Canadian movies that are out there. Like that is that would be such a fun rediscovery for the world at large if like a fun boutique label took it on.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I love that film so much.
If I
So
had enough money, that's what I would be doing is like some sort of a contemporary to Canadian International Pictures, where they
mhm.
very much are focused on like the 70s and 80s sort of Canuxploitation era.
Yeah,
I would love, there's so many great films from the 90s and the 2000s, things like that that just
oh god,
exist in limbo.
yeah. Like the fact that something like Aden Arjoet doesn't have an HD version
Yeah.
is a crime because that film looks incredible.
Yeah.
Like just oh, it's
And like
yeah,
that
it'd be
sounds like
so good.
the type of film that Criterion would love to release too.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
They did just do when I was at the closet at TIFF. I did pick up uh, 32 short films about Glenn Gould,
Mhm.
which like they picked up, and I was like, oh yeah, this is the kind of thing they should be doing. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if they tried to pick up like the Red Violin, another Francois Girard film that's amazing and is kind of lost in that limbo period of late 90s, early 2000s of availability. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it seems like unless your name is David Cronenberg or Adam Agoyan,
yeah,
it seems like the international labels don't care.
yeah,
And like even in our own country, it's tough because we are so walled off from the French industry. Like I like
yeah.
unless it's like the one or two big name directors or the one or two breakthrough titles per year, I have no idea what's coming out of Quebec. And then you realize that they've got hundreds and hundreds of films, coming out every year or every few years, and
All
you're
the
just like,
time.
how do you keep track of
And
this
kind
industry?
of semi thriving in their in Montreal and Quebec City and
Yeah,
in the La Belle Province, like they're doing just fine. Like they've had a thriving industry for a long time. But
yeah. You'll like there's like a bilingual actors. You'll see them pop up once every few years, and then you'll look at their IMDb or their Letterboxd and realize that they did 5 movies last year, but they were all French Canadian films. Like, I did not hear about any of these titles.
yeah, yeah, it's it'll be a struggle, but I'm hopeful with some of the newer stuff. Like I know I mentioned Red Rooms. Red Rooms got some pretty good
Mhm.
notices. Nirvana, the band, the show. Even I think my one of my local independent theaters, I think this week is picking up Myland Kicks, which I'm really interested to see. Yeah, maybe it will improve, and maybe I don't know, maybe things will blow up, and you and I can start that label,
There we go. Yeah.
second Canadian boutique. You mentioned in your podcast that you also have a recurring series about doing an A24 retrospective.
Mhm.
Have you dove into A24's physical media stuff?
I only own one of their titles, and that is The Last Black Man in San Francisco. It's one of their like
Okay.
the large, awkward ones that everyone kind of hates. It looks
Yeah.
great, but like it doesn't
Hmm.
fit anywhere. I've got like one specific shelf with like my awkward box set. So my the Fellini box set from Criterion, the Godzilla
Yeah.
Showa era, and then that one. I think those are kind of the three that like don't fit on any other shelf, so it like has to be bigger space. There's more notches in between the shelves than
Yeah.
every other one. So that's the only A24 release that I have like specifically from them. I do really like the look of their, the barcode branding that they have. I think
Yeah.
very clean. I really like that. Um, it's just tough. I find I I don't like paying a lot for one movie,
Hmm.
and they don't really do sales. They make it hard for these titles to be sold up in Canada,
Yes.
things
Yeah.
like that. And so it's like, I don't really want to pay like $50 Canadian for a single movie. Like that's
Hmm.
kind of ridiculous. I know you did a whole episode based on sales, and one of the things that you used was a Reddit link that I had sent you, and
Yeah.
like I try not to. I refuse to pay more than than market value, than the
Mhm.
MSRP price. I will not pay more than that. I don't care how much I love a movie. It's not worth it to me to buy
Yeah.
more than that. And I try always to buy stuff on sales because
Mhm.
like when there's like 4 Criterion sales a year, why are you spending, the 30, what is it? $40 USD for a 4K when you can get
Yeah.
it for $20
Yeah.
4 times a year. Just wait 2 months and there'll be a sale. Uh,
Yep.
Kino literally always has a sale on, like
Yes, they do. Yeah, pretty frequently. Even if they change up titles for it, they're not
Yeah.
shy about a sale.
Arrow also does, like, 6 sales a year and things like that. Vinegar Syndrome does several sales a year.
Yeah.
Why are you
And
why
some
are you
others, some
buying
newer
this?
ones have started. Radiance has started doing a few more frequent ones too. And yeah.
100%. So in my mind, it does not make sense to me to buy a movie over retail. So I'm not
Yeah.
gonna do that, and when the retail is so expensive, like these A24 releases, as beautiful as they look, it's
Hmm.
a really hard sell, and I love A24 films, but I find that for the most part, the movies that they've been choosing to release haven't been my favorites of theirs. So it's
Yeah.
like, every time I'm like, "Oh, that looks really nice," but, like, I like The Brutalist, but I don't love The Brutalist, so I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm gonna buy it.
Yeah, The Brutalist is the one that I have, and I'm actually holding off on watching it because I do want to do an episode of like discovering the label a little bit, and
Yes.
I have been watching what they've been doing for that exact reason because there's some that I really don't appeal to me, some that I've seen that I want to revisit. Like one of my favorites of last year was Eddington, and I'm
Mm.
really interested to check out what they were doing with that edition. I also probably am wouldn't be one I would go back to a bunch, but The Zone of Interest was probably one of my favorite movies of the latter half of my lifetime. Like I thought it was incredible.
Yeah.
It's not going to be one that it's a bit like Requiem for a Dream, where it's on your shelf, and when you want to watch it, it's a great addition.
Mhm.
I'm not going to be putting it on, once a month or anything like that, but I'm interested to kind of check out them as a label, because you're right, the packaging for them is really stellar. A lot of the artwork of what they're doing is really cool. The special edition stuff, like the Last Black Man of San Francisco, the Stop Making Sense, the Everything Everywhere set, the Green Knight, like they have those kind of bigger ones that look interesting, and I'm not sure if it's completely what's my vibe that I want to collect, but they seem to do some cool stuff. I'm interested to check them out, but yeah, I mean, a lot of their older films still are, like the Blu-ray of Under the Skin I have is the like Elevation kind of
Yeah.
standard one. So yeah, no, it makes sense, and the money thing creeps up again. It is an expensive hobby, as we all know.
Mhm.
Is And speaking of that, in thinking about things that you're conscious of, and it does sound like you kind of have a pretty good ethos about what you want to collect and what you'll do with that. Is there anything that you maybe don't have any of, or you maybe just have a little bit of, that you really have enjoyed and want to collect more of, or want to look for more?
I think the issue with a lot of my movie tastes, I've I've been accused of having very highbrow movie taste, by my
Hi, me too.
yeah. And so I often end up buying movies that, like, I love, but you kinda have to be in the right mood to want to watch it.
Yeah,
You were mentioning, what was the A24 film The Zone of Interest.
zone of interest. Yeah,
A movie like that. I love that movie too. I've seen it twice. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to watch it again unless, I maybe do an episode on, like, a Jonathan Glazer retrospective, something like that.
yeah,
It is so heavy. I own quite a few films that are very heavy, and, you know, the mood doesn't strike you fancy when you're like, "Oh, I wanna throw something on that's gonna be a fun night," I just got off work, I just wanna relax, I wanna have a couple drinks or whatever and have some
yeah.
fun. So what I need to do is I need to work on getting fun movies, especially when, like, whether it's with my wife I'm watching or if I have friends over and things like that. I'm like, "Hey, you wanna watch a movie?" By the way, ignore 75 to 90% of my titles because 'cause they're gonna be super depressing and dark and not what we're in the mood for.
Yeah.
So I've sort of been doing that with my giallo films, but the problem
Hmm.
is, like, they're also not for everyone.
Yeah.
I don't watch almost any of them with my wife. They're not
Hmm.
her style. Um,
Yeah.
I've been
That's fair.
showing her some Argento, and she likes Argento, so, like, it's a little Argento's a bit of an easier sell too because like his filmmaking techniques are so top tier. You can really appreciate that aspect
Yes.
where they're not as sleazy or trashy or things like that, like some of the other Giallo films. So
Hmm.
like, I'm not gonna like have a friend over and be like, "Hey, let's watch this really trashy, sleazy Giallo movie."
Yeah.
I don't fully know what wavelength they're on, so that's something that I do need to branch out more and have some fun films. And I don't mean just like Hollywood popcorn
Hmm.
whole superhero type things. Just fun films that are easy crowd pleasers, and maybe that's action films, maybe that's more mystery or comedy or things like that, where I sort of feel like I need to round out my collection a little bit better in regards to if I want to share it with someone.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's fair. I've kind of in the almost decade my wife and I've been together now. We one thing we discovered, and I mean we have our own podcast about doing movie discovery too. But one thing that we discovered pretty early on is that we both love Cary Grant movies.
Mm,
Like it's just that like hilarious comfort watch kind of, even if it's not a hilarious movie, like there's something about watching something like North by Northwest
yeah,
that's just like this is great, anybody can sit down and watch this film and enjoy it. And like so we've really enjoyed that, and I've probably bought even more Cary Grant movies. I love his stuff, but yeah, I probably have more now because I will consciously be like, well, yeah, I'll buy Mr. Blanding Builds His Dream Home for $5. Sure, yeah, this would be a fun watch.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good. I like that as far as it's something that people can get a look at and go like, oh, maybe discovering this, because yeah, you're right. It's tough to sit people down and go like, here, I'm going to convert you to Anatomy of a Fall, so sit down and
Yeah, yeah. Or like, I'm bought the Fritz Lang silent film box set from Kino Lorber. I've
Mhm.
only watched 2 films from it, and I think there's like 15 movies in there. I really gotta get into that. But like, if someone comes over, I'm not gonna be like, "Hey, you want to watch a 2.5 hour silent German film?"
Everybody's eyes glaze as
Yeah,
soon as that
100%.
happens.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, no, it makes sense. Um, the other thing that I kind of like to in talking with people about movies or anything like that, and we talked about sort of the idea of physical media, of stuff not being available or getting re-released or getting reissued or restored. Um, Talked about a couple of titles, Canadian ones, that kind of aren't really available or we'd like to see coming out. Is there anything that like in your head is like, if someone releases this film or remasters it, I will buy it as soon as I possibly can?
yes. I've got a couple titles. I mentioned earlier where directors are a big thing for me.
Yeah.
And so 2 directors that I'm trying to work on my collections. One is obviously Cronenberg and the title Existence, which was released on 4K by Vinegar Syndrome, both a limited edition and standard edition, but they both sold out basically instantly. I'm
Yes.
pretty. I believe you have a copy of it. And I believe we had shared some messages about that where you had found
I
it
do.
at the
Yeah, I've one local store that was a Vince distributor for a
yeah
little while, and like I found the sweet spot where I think I got the last one they could possibly get. So
yeah. And like I said, I don't want to pay more than retail, and so like you look online, and the standard edition is selling for like $200, and the limited edition selling for like $500, and I'm like, no, it's a movie. I'm not spending that much on a movie. I don't care how much I love David Cronenberg, and the fact that I don't have that is killing me.
yeah.
So I imagine eventually the rights will go to someone else, whether Vinegar Syndrome will be able to do a reprint of it, or it will just go to someone else, and I'll get it that way. So like,
Mhm.
I'm totally fine waiting to get that.
It's kind of the fun thing with a lot of these is that and I was fortunate enough to get a copy of that one, but there's so many of them that are just like, if you do wait, most things are going to come around.
Yeah. The joke, obviously, like on places like Reddit, where like, oh, hey, I bought the Blu-ray of this, which means next month the 4K is gonna be announced.
Yeah.
So like that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like I'm not too concerned. If they saw it was feasible to do it once on 4K, and the fact that it sold out means there another company is gonna offer up enough money to whoever owns the rights to be able to do it again. Like it's just a fact of the nature of how the ecosystem and the economics of this stuff works. Like they're not going to be like, oh no, we don't want any more money. We sold enough. We're good. We don't want it.
Yeah, a lot of them, especially with somebody like David Cronenberg, it's not as if the jury's still out on David Cronenberg, and they're like, oh, I don't know if there's an audience for this
Yeah.
guy. Like, yeah, they're very likely going to come in, and as much as yeah, there's some historical ones that like are just never going to come out or are just like whatever. But yeah, I think I find that with records a lot too.
Yeah.
That there's sort of the as I get older and we're close to the same age bracket. I'm a little bit older than you are, but there's a lot of stuff that like I will see at the record store. I'm like, oh, they reissued this album. That's great. And then you see the little sticker on it that says 20th year reissue, and like I need Advil immediately.
Yeah.
Because like, yeah,
Knees and
this is
backs
my
start hurting right
demographic
away.
right
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
But the other director who I'm also now is sort of in my radar of what I want to collect all of his stuff is Michael Mann.
Mm,
The biggest one is Manhunter.
yes.
There was, and I think that's probably just about everyone's, top of their wish list sort of
Hmm.
thing. They had a really, really nice edition come out on Blu-ray, but that was like 10 plus years ago now, and it's
Okay.
been out of print and goes for an insanely high amount of money. Like I said, not paying that.
Yeah.
There is rumors that a 4K is being worked on. I don't know if it's Criterion or someone else, but like there's rumors out there that this remaster is being done is happening.
Hmm.
And then I would say also a lot of his films in general got released on Blu-ray or DVD when they came out, but they're not really anything special. Like I'm
Mm.
not gonna get the Collateral or Miami Vice, the Blu-ray that they came out. You still see them at Shoppers where they'll be like 4 action
Yeah.
movies in one pack. I'm not buying this. No,
Yeah. I'm
sorry,
okay.
Shoppers.
Yeah, and I think there's probably a little bit of not that Michael Mann needs renewed interest, but with the Heat 2 stuff coming out with that about to sort of go into production and potentially being, hopefully it's not Michael Mann's last film, but he's one of those directors that is getting up there in age, and I feel like if we can get a nice boutique version of something like Black Hat, we can probably get ourselves a nice boutique version of Manhunter that is a little more available. So it's a good
I
one, man.
am.
I haven't seen Manhunter in
Oh,
forever.
it's so good. Yeah. Every few months, my wife goes, "Is there a version of Manhunter out yet? Is there a version of Manhunter out yet?" I'm like, "No, don't worry. I will buy it and for you because I know how much you love this. You do not need
Yeah,
to ask me every 3 or 4 months. I promise you, when it gets announced, I will tell you and I will buy it."
yeah, yeah. It's sound it from the
Yeah.
rafters.
And
It'll
I
be out.
will say I am a Black Hat apologist. I do think that is, unironically a masterpiece, especially the director's cut where they rearrange the order of scenes. I think it's
Mm,
absolutely fantastic. I love it. I have the Arrow version, and I work in film, um,
yep.
and listeners obviously don't know that. I work in film. I just wrapped working on a show with a great actor, a guy named Richie Coster, who a lot of people might recognize from The Dark Knight. He plays
Hmm.
one of the main villains in that film. He has
Yep.
a very long and storied career. Love him, terrific guy. He's in Black Hat, and I told him I loved it, and he's like, "But why?" I'm like, "It's a great film." He's like, the script was rubbish. I'm like, "No, the script was fantastic. It's complicated and convoluted, but it's a great film." And he doesn't matter how many times I told him I would say it, he would still be like, no, it wasn't a very good film. But then I would mention specific moments, like there's a great final sequence in this film where there's this like giant parade going on. I think it's in Thailand or something like that. And getting him to talk about it, it's like, oh no, those are all real. We choreographed all of this, thousands of people like going
Yeah,
on. Yeah,
yeah. Michael Mann's a special one. That's Black Hat's one that I've never seen the full thing of, and
I
so I'm
recommend
very
it.
like, yeah. I think it's a bit of a fun like a punching bag in some ways, but there's also enough people that are like, but actually it's pretty good, So I'm interested to check it out.
I'll say the litmus test is this. Did you like his Miami Vice?
Not bad,
Okay.
not bad. It's been a lot of years since I've seen it.
I would say it's probably tonally very similar to Miami Vice and
Okay.
sort of shot in a very similar way. Miami Vice really like, one of the first digital films really leaned into
Yeah.
sort of the graininess of that. And Black Hat does not have that, but like
Hmm.
in the way he shot it, it's very similar, very handheld, very
Okay.
free moving, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be something I think wouldn't be a total waste of time for me
Yeah.
to check out. Then. So there you go. Yeah, no, it's that's fun, and maybe we'll keep getting stuff. You know, whether it's more Michael Mann stuff. He's got some really great editions of. I still need to check out the Heat 4K, but
Mm,
I know the Thief Criterion is just awesome to watch, and
yep.
yeah, that'd be a fun one. Um, yeah, that's kind of where I wanted the conversation to go today. I think this was great. Thank you for again being my guinea pig for this. This went really well. You mentioned the podcast. Where can everybody check that out, and the website, and anything else you want to plug before we finish things off?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. This is a lot of fun. Really enjoy talking about this. I have not had the chance to talk about my collection on my podcast, so I'm glad I was able to do it on another podcast. That
Yeah,
worked out. Yeah, you can find the podcast Contra Zoom Pod on all cast apps. I routinely like check to make sure like is there a new one out there? I will upload it up there, the RSS feed, so you can find it literally everywhere. It's on YouTube, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple, um, Podbean, Breaker, whatever you use. Podcast Addict is there. But the website is contrazoompod.com. We're posting reviews almost daily. Like we've got a lot of great stuff that we do. And then on social media at ContraZoomPod, I try to keep everything very simple. It is those three words, ContraZoomPod. So it is that everywhere.
awesome. No, thank you very much for coming on the podcast, and we'll. I mean, Dave, like you said, I'm going to be doing a little bit of writing for you as far as the physical media review stuff. So,
Hmm.
looking forward to doing more of that, and yeah, appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt. I love this.
Thank you once again to Dakota for coming onto the podcast and being my very first collector conversation guest. It was a great conversation. We've been able to connect a little bit through the podcast space, and if you're interested in checking out a really great movie podcast, Contra Zoom Pod is a great one to check out. Like you said, the tagline "We go back and forth about movies" is a great one. It's a wide variety of topics that Dakota covers on his own, as well as with a variety of guests on different things. And also, if you're interested in a little bit of extra movie info outside of the podcast space, also do check out Contra Zoom Pod's website, which, as Dakota alluded to, I am also going to be a contributor related to some physical media reviews, and have done one relatively recently with the new Warner Archive Blu-ray for Tea and Sympathy, and have more in the pipeline coming up for that. So really excited to be working with Dakota on Contra Zoom Pod website, and really excited to have more collector conversations in the future. I have a few people that I do have in mind that I want to talk to about maybe bringing on the pod to have some conversation. If you're somebody that also loves physical media, would love to hear about all of that stuff and maybe some of the things we talked about today, you can check out anywhere on my social media. I do have an Instagram account at Cinema on a Shelf, which you can see new podcasts upcoming, and feel free to interact with me and send me a DM on there to chat all things physical media. I do also have a Letterboxd account at Maddie236 if you're wanting to check out some of the things that I've been watching and follow along. I'd love to give you a follow back, and maybe you'll see some of the things that I'm watching on Contra Zoom Pod's review, or even things that I'm talking about on future episodes of the podcast. And if you're interested in checking out maybe another podcast that I'm involved in, I do another one with my wife called I Can't Believe You Haven't Seen, in which we watch movies that one or the other of us has not seen before. And our most recent episode was about a film that neither of us had seen before. We held off long enough and finally got to watch Sinners together. So that was our 20th episode of I Can't Believe You Haven't Seen. Same thing, socials and Instagram at I Can't Believe You Haven't Seen, and pretty much everywhere podcasts are available. Thank you very much for listening to this episode. Take care.